He asked questions no one wanted to answer. In the streets of Athens, among merchants and generals, Socrates challenged certainty with silence and turned conversation into a weapon. They called him corrupter, blasphemer, a danger to the youth. At 70, he stood before his accusers, not begging, not retreating, but daring the city to face its own contradictions. The verdict was death. His reply, a calm sip of hemlock. This is the story of a man who never wrote a word, but changed how the world thinks, and of a trial that turned philosophy into something worth dying for. Let us embark on a journey through the vibrant heart of ancient Athens, where amidst the city's bustling elegance and intellectual vigour, an unlikely figure takes centre stage, a man whose inquiries will forever alter the world of philosophy. Meet Socrates, a philosopher of paradoxes. Impoverished yet influential, unkempt yet undeniably wise. In these vivid streets of Athens during the 5th century BCE, his life unfolds, brimming with contradictions and insights. Socrates can be found walking barefoot through the agora, a hub of life overflowing with the cries of merchants and the animated conversations of citizens. His ungainly form, draped in simple attire, starkly contrasts with the polished marble and vibrant activity surrounding him. Without scrolls or heralded titles, he's an enigma amidst the city's grandeur. Yet there's an undeniable magnetism in his penetrating gaze. His method? A weapon sharper than any blade, questions that pierce through facades, revealing layers beneath. The agora is alive with the pulse of the day as Socrates engages with its passers-by, posing questions that demand more than simple answers. This isn't idle curiosity, it's a relentless pursuit of truth through dialogue. While others cling to accepted norms, Socrates digs to the bedrock of wisdom, exposing ignorance camouflaged as knowledge. Many find his inquiries unsettling. Some dismiss him as an eccentric, while others, caught in his conversations, leave changed, both enlightened and bewildered. Socrates wields his method like a sword, deftly separating superficial appearances from deeper truths. His approach challenges Athenians, a fearless dissection of thoughts by those confident in their wisdom. By pretending ignorance, Socrates forces others to examine their beliefs, unearthing contradictions. This quest isn't mere pedagogy, it's a broader search for the essence of concepts often taken as given. His dialogues, spanning topics like virtue and knowledge, transform routine exchanges into profound explorations, stripping layers to uncover authentic understanding. Admiration and animosity swirl around Socrates in equal measure. Young intellectuals, enthralled by his brilliance, flock to him. Figures such as Plato and Xenophon become devoted followers, seeing in Socratic inquiry a tool for revolutionizing thought. Yet many view him with disdain, wary of his unsettling influence on Athenian life, perceiving him as a disruptive force, challenging the cosy familiarity of tradition. The philosopher's habit of public debate and defiance of authority irks those who prefer the stability of custom to the unpredictability of questioning. For such adversaries, Socrates is a threat, a gadfly disturbing the societal norms. At odds with the materialism of his time, Socrates stands apart, choosing simplicity over wealth. In a city where fortunes are flaunted, his poverty signals a deliberate choice, valuing wisdom far beyond fleeting riches. His life speaks to these principles, living unburdened by possessions, seeking the riches of thought and dialogue instead. In Athens, where gold shines as brightly as ideologies, his detachment challenges prevailing values, provoking admiration or scorn. To Socrates, understanding is the treasure worth seeking, eclipsing any temporal gain. Fearless in his curiosity, Socrates confronts everyone, from sophists to statesmen. His dialogues strip away assumed knowledge, scrutinizing those wielding authority. Unlike sophists, who skillfully persuade without principle, Socrates' questions delve deep, revealing weaknesses masked by arrogance. His dismantling of logic invites rather than attacks, drawing others into a deeper reflection. In doing so, he mirrors truth, encouraging the inspection of personal veracity. His dialogues are not predetermined to destroy but illuminate, fostering a clearer understanding of self and world. Physical beauty, much esteemed in Athens, is no ally to Socrates, whose appearance is often described as unattractive. Yet his charisma, rooted in intellect, conviction, and devotion to truth, draws in many. His debates blend wit with depth, engaging listeners beyond the superficial, showcasing wisdom's allure independent of appearance. Those dismissing him for his looks soon find themselves captivated by his sharp mind. Through this, Socrates reminds us that genuine charisma transcends physicality, echoing in strength and clarity of moral convictions. Socrates' legacy extends beyond Athens, inspiring future philosophical movements. Cynicism, led by Diogenes, radicalizes Socrates' teachings into an extreme critique of society, challenging conventions with humor and bold defiance. Embracing Socratic questioning, cynics provoke a re-evaluation of wealth's nature and societal approval. Diogenes lives in stark simplicity, echoing Socratic thought. Life pared to essentials, questioning the foundations of power. Socrates' influence endures, radiating through philosophies born from his seeds of inquiry. Despite criticism, Socrates' impact deepens over time, planting seeds of dissent that flourish. His methods provoke profound change in Athenian intellectual life, his capacity to question stone-cast beliefs forming a bedrock for future exploration. Socrates, a martyr for free thought through his trial and execution, symbolizes the pursuit of truth against oppressive ignorance. Ideas preserved by followers like Plato lay the foundation for Western philosophy. Through centuries, Socrates remains a persistent advocate for inquiry, his voice resounding across ages. As we conclude this part of Socrates' narrative, his story remains a beacon of intellectual pursuit. His questions, echoing from the dusty streets of Athens, challenge us to embrace relentless curiosity. Socrates, the unlikely philosopher, leaves a legacy beautifully timeless, an eternal call to reflection and reason. His life is not only that of a thinker, but an invitation for us all to seek deeper truths, enriching our world with the wisdom of inquiry. In the shadow of Sparta's triumph, Athens emerged not as a glorious city of rulers, but as a haunting echo of its former self. The Peloponnesian War, a tumultuous and consuming conflict with Sparta, had dismantled Athens' once mighty empire. Streets that once thrummed with ambition and vitality now lay burdened with the whispers of defeat. The city, previously a beacon of democracy and culture, now struggled against a landscape littered with reminders of its diminished strength. The physical scars of battle were evident in the ruined facades of temples and homes, but the emotional wounds felt even deeper, strangling the very spirit that had made Athens shine so brightly. Amid this desolation, Athens found itself gripped by fear and paranoia, conditions ripe for the emergence of tyranny. The 30 tyrants, an oligarchic regime bolstered by Spartan support, seized power. Their rule was a stark contrast to the democratic ideals once cherished. Their methods were ruthless, marked by executions and exiles designed to consolidate power. In the dusty agora, the spirit of public discourse gave way to suspicion as the city turned against its own. Civic institutions crumbled under the weight of despotism. Property was seized, and the fingers of tyranny reached into every corner of Athenian life. The reign of the 30 left behind an acrid bitterness, scarring the collective memory of a society that yearned for its former glory. With the collapse of this oligarchic regime, Athens sought to heal, to embrace democracy anew. Yet, a thirst for justice lingered, and as former tyrants faced retribution, a shadow loomed over Socrates. A veteran agitator and philosopher, Socrates found himself implicated by association. Notorious figures like Critias and Alcibiades, former students of his whose deeds were marred by betrayal and ambition, tainted his reputation. The public's desperate quest for accountability linked him to these characters, transforming Socrates from an esteemed thinker into a symbol of intellectual subversion. In a city frayed by war and divided by suspicion, the search for scapegoats intensified. The Athenians, navigating the choppy waters of their own disillusionment, clung to the idea of blame, a balm for the unhealed wounds of their collective psyche. Socrates, with his probing questions and his unyielding quest for truth, stood in the line of fire. The philosopher's once celebrated method of inquiry, likened to a persistent gadfly's sting, began to chafe against a society more interested in reasserting its identity than questioning its beliefs. His relentless questioning, which pierced through the veneer of societal norms, now seemed subversive rather than enlightening. The air in Athens crackled with tension, and the city's famed democracy found itself under scrutiny. The collapse of trust in civic institutions was nearly complete, worn away by years of war and the oppressive rule of the 30. The trial of Socrates became emblematic of this turmoil, a spectacle of judgment and self-reflection by a populace that grappled with the authenticity of its democratic ideals. As the day of his trial approached, anger and apprehension hung thick in the air. Athenians gathered in the agora, sharing tales that blurred the lines between fact and rumour, shaping a narrative that would soon play out in the courts. In this volatile climate, Socrates' commitment to his ideals of virtue and knowledge clashed with the desperate need for societal stability. Philosophy, once at the heart of Athenian culture, now seemed a luxury the city could ill afford amid its existential crisis. The ideals Socrates espoused, those of democracy, wisdom, and truth, clattered against the hollow echoes of a society recovering from tyranny and chaos. His teachings, which cut to the core of what it meant to be ethical, challenged those in power, stoking fears of further insurrection. The growing rumblings against Socrates intensified, swirling into a cacophony of suspicion that found momentum in every corner of Athens, from grand homes to humble workshops. Here was a man whose presence could no longer be ignored, the gadfly that irritated those who yearned for easy answers. The stage was set, a society on edge, poised for a reckoning that would see democracy tested by its own hand. As whispers solidified into charges, the legacy of Athens itself teetered on the brink. The inevitable clash loomed, an impending drama that held within it not only the fate of one philosopher, but the soul of a city striving to rise from its ashes. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, the Oracle of Delphi stood as a revered conduit between gods and mortals, a place where divine whispers echoed through the ancient stones like incense smoke in the early morning air. For those who ventured there, seeking the oracle's cryptic guidance, it was a journey not of mere curiosity, but of humility before powers beyond comprehension. The priestess, the Pythia, would speak in riddles induced by sacred vapours, leaving seekers more puzzled than when they arrived. Into this mystical setting, Socrates found himself unexpectedly thrust by a message delivered to his friend Chaerephon, which declared, "No man is wiser than Socrates." Here lay an enigma. How could a man of such humble means who professed no grand wisdom be proclaimed the wisest? For Socrates, it was not a coronation of intellect, but a challenge from the divine, an invitation to traverse the criss-crossing labyrinth of supposed knowledge. His path was one of inquiry, ever walking the bustling streets of Athens, approaching its thinkers, politicians, poets, craftsmen, as an undeterred gadfly. He questioned not to illuminate his own understanding, but to reveal the hollow certainties beneath the surface facades. Socrates embarked on dialogues with the powerful and influential, challenging those who claimed wisdom. Politicians, the assumed arbiters of Athenian knowledge, found themselves cornered by his penetrating questions that sought the truth behind their polished words. Like an artisan testing clay, he uncovered flaws invisible to many. His method was not to dismantle their standing, but to expose that their wisdom lacked substance. He continued this relentless pursuit of comprehension, turning his gaze to poets whose art captured emotions and stories, yet whose understanding was limited to their crafted verses. Craftsmen, whose hands shaped Athens' glory, too often presumed wisdom far beyond their crafts. Through these exchanges, Socrates demonstrated that the true path to wisdom was in acknowledging one's ignorance. As this gentle philosopher probed Athenian intellect, the city began to feel his influence. Young Athenians, their curiosity piqued by his fearless questioning, flocked to him. To them, Socrates was an embodiment of intellectual liberty, challenging them to engage with their world critically, rather than be imprisoned by tradition. Yet, while some saw liberation, others saw a threat. Establishments of power viewed his inquiry as corrosive, fearing its potential to untangle the foundations of Athenian life. Central to Socrates' approach was what we now call the Socratic method, a dialogue of endless questioning that stripped away assumption and invited reflection. It wasn't about transferring knowledge from one to another, but about revealing deeper truths through mutual exploration. Socrates was an intellectual midwife, guiding others to birth their ideas in a dialectic dance. More than a mere philosophical tool, it represented a departure from the authoritative imparting of learning, inviting each participant to look beneath their accepted truths. Socratic irony, deft and intelligent, was his hallmark. With apparent humility, he identified as ignorant, enabling conversations grounded in genuine curiosity rather than defensive posturing. His irony was not mere wit, but an ethical philosophy, compelling others to shed pride and confront their limits. It was a challenge not just to individuals, but to the entire Athenian society, urging them to question what they believed and explore the depths of their own understanding. Yet this strain of provocation divided Athens. For some, Socrates was a revitalizing force. For others, a heretic undermining cherished beliefs. The youthful crowd embraced the philosophical shift, while traditionalists stood by the established order, wary of relinquishing their ingrained convictions. This division mirrored the larger tension between progress and the comfort of certainty, illustrating the societal risks inherent to transformative thought. Socrates defined wisdom not as knowing the answers, but as being intensely aware of one's ignorance. Public opinion, however, varied starkly. Admirers saw in Socrates a sage whose intellect soared beyond his simple demeanour. Critics, however, viewed his claims of ignorance as disingenuous cleverness, distrusting his ceaseless questioning. To them, Socrates was less philosopher and more agitator, sowing discord through bewildering simplicity. Yet his candid inquiry laid groundwork that would flourish long after his demise, setting the precedent for generations of thinkers who would follow. As his greatest student Plato would demonstrate, the dialogue Socrates began continued to echo through the ages, sculpting the bedrock of Western philosophical thought. Socratic questioning has perpetuated a legacy of critical engagement, illustrating that within the unknown lies the capacity for understanding and growth. The impacts of Socratic questioning rippled through Athenian society as its people struggled to balance their illustrious past with current uncertainties. The great city, wounded by internal strife and philosophical upheaval, contended with the dual nature of revelation, enlightening yet unsettling. Through Socrates, Athens, and indeed humanity, was reminded that to grow means to embrace the chaotic dance of knowledge and doubt alike. Even today, his legacy endures as a beacon guiding us through the fog of presumed knowledge, urging us toward discovery. In the unrelenting pursuit of truth, Socrates showed that wisdom is not found in certainties, but in an open heart willing to explore the uncharted intellectual seas. Amidst the turmoil of Athens, a city recovering from wars and internal strife, three figures emerge from the shadows: Meletus, Anytus, and Lycon. They step onto the stage not merely as individuals, but as representatives of a society seeking a scapegoat amidst its fears and uncertainties. Meletus, the youthful poet, leads the charge, possibly swayed more by older voices than personal grievance. Anytus, a politician with a grip on the democratic restoration post-tyranny, seethes with silent disdain under his mask of civic duty. Completing this triad is Lycon, a seasoned orator intent on preserving the Athenian way of life. Together their intentions are cloaked in the guise of safeguarding public morality, yet the real motive sizzles beneath, a battle against Socrates' probing questions that unsettle the status quo. Socrates faces charges of corrupting the youth and impiety. Ostensibly a protective act for Athens, these accusations instead stem from a deep-seated fear of his incisively critical intellect. Athens is a city split by its past and its future. In a landscape where democracy, religion, and philosophy vie for dominance, a figure like Socrates is seen as a threat that must be quelled. The atmosphere brims with paranoia, and his insistent questioning is perceived as a dangerous spark that could ignite social upheaval. Piety, a cornerstone of Athenian identity, stands central in the accusation of impiety. Socrates' reputation as an atheist swirls into the narrative. Although he claims to follow a divine voice, his daimonion. For Athenians deeply entwined with their religious customs, his inquiries into the nature of the gods suggest an echo of chaos. Yet Socrates is no mere atheist. His detachment and questions challenge the gods' authority, gods who are more than myth, but moral custodians and anchors of societal order. Delving deeper into the charges of corrupting the youth, the indictment signals something more profound. Socrates' method, the relentless, encourages young minds to dissect long-held beliefs, undermining traditional narratives with methodical questioning. His ideas empower Athenian youth to see the world through a lens of critical thinking, rather than rote acceptance, a notion both feared and misunderstood by those in power. Ironically, followers of Socrates found liberation, not corruption, in his teachings. They sought truth and virtue, not rebellion for its own sake in a volatile world, teetering on the brink of social upheaval. Yet to the establishment, these young thinkers, armed with newfound tools of questioning, seemed an echo of discord, a threat to societal stability, disguised as wisdom. For every accusation thrown, there were voices shaped, inspired, or angered by Socrates. Students like Critias, notorious for tyranny, and Alcibiades, the charismatic general and defector in war, are cited as evidence of Socrates' dangerous reach. Critics point to their moral failings as symptomatic of Socratic teachings, positioning them as poster children of decay, moulded by his philosophies to Athens' detriment. Yet amongst Socrates' pupils flourished individuals like Plato, shaping philosophical legacies spanning millennia. They didn't seek chaos but wisdom and higher truths. The trial unmasks not just a legal battle, but a societal struggle to align with or against an intellectual revolution. Beyond the formality of the courtroom, political currents swirl as unseen drivers. Anytus holds motives marbling personal ambition with political necessity. Here, the trial transforms into a theatre for reclaiming societal direction, cloaked in democratic ideals. Socrates' probing challenges unsettle, casting him as an outsider, unravelling accepted truths with relentless inquiry. He embodies the antithesis to rigid conventionalism, yet amid tumult, introspection resembles betrayal, his trial quelling philosophical rebellion under guises of stability. In Socrates, Athens finds a dilemma between introspection and order. Public opinion emanates from the agora's heart, where tales of Socratic discourse circulate amidst the city's pulse. Merchants, artisans, and spectators spread tales of Socrates, dividing them between views of him as a chaos bringer or a beacon of free thought. Within this public sphere, lines are drawn between tradition and inquiry. The trial resembles a tragic drama played out in theatres, the audience of Athens participating in this societal discourse. Opinions reveal tensions as a society questions whether to shield cultural continuity or embrace Socratic provocations against tradition. Defending himself, Socrates employs the very dialectical method deemed so dangerous. His defence doesn't plead for exoneration, but unveils Athens' contradictions, reminding all that wisdom begins with acknowledging one's ignorance. Socrates captures this turbulent courtroom moment as an opportunity to confront deeper truths about society. His rhetoric is not merely self-preservation, but an invocation to examine life deeply, challenging Athens not to condemn but to reflect. This defence challenges not just a verdict, but presents a mirror for Athens, testing what it values in philosophy and society as a whole. In Aftermath, Socrates' legacy intertwines with Athens' consciousness, an indelible mark etched onto collective memory. Though condemned, his ideas immortalised by Plato etch across time, continuing to challenge norms and inspire intellectual evolution. Though mortal, Socrates becomes a symbol of inquiry, transcending eras, his trial a footnote in the vast dialogue of human understanding. His execution becomes an ironic underscore to a legacy that defies death's grasp, seeding philosophical inquiry across ages and celestial horizons. In ancient Athens, the Pnyx was not just a gathering place, it was a crucible where democracy and justice simmered. As dawn's light crested the horizon, 501 citizens filled this open-air amphitheatre, each with a stone in hand, ready to cast a vote that would decide the fate of Socrates. The air buzzed with anticipation and tension, a testament to the collision of politics, philosophy, and personal vendettas. Beneath the vast sky, Athens would decide if this provocateur was a corrupter or a catalyst, breathing life into these stone-paved proceedings that had defined their city for generations. The sun climbed higher, casting illuminating beams over the Nix's worn stones, as whispers of excitement and apprehension mingled. This was no ordinary trial. It was an intricate tapestry of theatre and civic duty, woven with threads of philosophical debate. Faces in the crowd were masks of intrigue and indifference, each juror an actor in this ancient democracy's mythic stage. The murmurs of the gods seemed to merge with the cacophony of human voices, elevating the proceedings to something sacred. Here, Socrates faced not a single judge, but the collective conscience of an entire city. Meletus, the young accuser, stepped forward with a blend of youthful fervour and public responsibility. His task was monumental: to voice Athenian fears, born from war and social upheaval, against a man seen as both a moral threat and a challenge to tradition. His words rolled through the crowd, painting Socrates as more than a peculiar philosopher. He was framed as a corrosive entity, undermining sacred traditions and corrupting the youth with insidious ideas. In a society where gods were entwined with daily life, Meletus's charge that Socrates' work was an affront to divine order cut to the city's spiritual core. As Meletus spoke, his rhetoric wove a compelling argument, urging jurors to reflect on the gravity of the accusations. To challenge the gods was to challenge the very foundations of Athenian identity. Through persuasive oration, Meletus depicted Socrates as a dangerous sophist, a trickster hiding behind a veil of wisdom, while subtly dismantling the divine fabric binding the city. This trial transcended the mere judgment of a man. It symbolised an existential battle for Athens' soul, with Socrates cast as both villain and revolutionary. Socrates rose to speak with a tranquil confidence, an enigmatic figure navigating this crucible of drama and truth. His demeanour was serene, a stark contrast to the charged atmosphere. He acknowledged his own ignorance, questioning how he could corrupt anyone without claiming special knowledge. His dialectical approach invited the jurors to reconsider their beliefs, prying open the facade of certainty to reveal deeper truths. This was not a plea for mercy, but an exposition of philosophical inquiry, challenging Athens to confront its own ideals. Socrates addressed the jury as if engaging in philosophical dialogue, challenging each assumption with precision and depth. He posed questions that forced a re-examination of values, shifting the focus from accusations to the pursuit of wisdom. Defying convention, he suggested that true understanding of the divine spirit emerged not from blind adherence, but from reasoned scrutiny. In his defiance, there lay authenticity, portraying his philosophical journey as a public service dedicated to unmasking illusions enshrouding Athenian morality. The trial evolved into a profound interplay between comfort and truth. Socrates championed the path of inquiry over complacency, urging Athens to choose enlightenment over tradition. His presence was a mirror, confronting Athens with a choice: embrace wisdom with its discomfort, or retreat into the safety of dogma. Yet Athenian society, seeing faith and reason in opposition, viewed Socrates with mistrust, as his radical ideas threatened to unravel their cherished certainties. As the proceedings unwound, Athens' identity hung in the balance. Socrates' trial was not merely his own reckoning, but the city's confrontation with its conflicted soul. Beneath the surface, the city grappled with its internal tensions, struggling between the comfort of ancestral glory and the pull of philosophical innovation. While some saw Socrates as subversive, he served as a reflective surface, amplifying the city's fears and contradictions, urging a deeper understanding of itself. In Socrates' isolation, he embodied the visionary challenging societal norms. He faced the ire of conformity with a steadfast commitment to intellectual exploration, standing alone in pursuit of truth. This philosophical path was not solitary in its arrogance, but in its dedication to honesty, offering Athens a glimpse into the Enlightenment stemming from genuine inquiry. As the jurors cast their stones, weighing justice against the echoes of comfort, Athens faced the dilemma of its own democratic ethos. Socrates' trial became a testament to collective authority's limits, where truth risked being lost amid majority concerns. This was more than a verdict. It was Socrates' lasting legacy, urging the city to embrace discomfort as a path to wisdom. As Athens stepped back into ordinary life, the trial's shadows lingered, marking a legacy not just of judgment, but an enduring dialogue of inquiry that would echo throughout history. In the towering courts of Athens, Socrates stood firm, unconcerned by the oppressive gaze of the jurors. He was neither a simple man nor an ordinary defendant. To him, this trial was an existential theatre where life's ultimate questions took centre stage. Athens, riddled with doubt and introspection after its glorious past crumbled, saw in Socrates a disruptor who dared to question the very fabric of its philosophical identity. With each word, he challenged the judgmental eyes in the room, urging them to reflect on their certainties. Gone were the days of unquestioned grandeur. The city, now steeped in suspicion, was asked to reckon with its inner discord. Socrates, a philosophical renegade, didn't appeal for mercy. Instead, he called for a deeper introspection. Standing bare before his peers, he spun tales of existential inquiry, promising the world to those brave enough to question their beliefs. As the aroma of olives drifted through the windows, mingling with whispers of doubt, he struck at the heart of convention, unravelling the myths that his accusers clung to. The unexamined life is not worth living, he declared with vigour, provoking a profound awakening. The court became a cauldron of philosophical ferment, where Athenians faced their deepest fears, probing mortality and morality under their beloved provocateur's piercing gaze. He wasn't defending himself alone. He put Athens itself on trial, planting seeds of self-awareness that would germinate through time. In a move that shocked many, Socrates suggested a reward of free meals for life, instead of a plea for leniency. It was a proposal soaked in irony, an absurdity as glaring as his accusers' demands for his disgrace. Yet in his mind, it was a testament to the bizarre righteousness of his philosophical mission. The idea of the city rewarding him for a life devoted to truth-seeking underscored his audacious commitment to intellectual pursuit over pragmatism. To ask a city, poised at his judgment, to regard him as a civic benefactor was nothing short of brazen. This wasn't a plea for mercy nor a jest. It was a challenge to recognise his invaluable role in nurturing the city's soul, despite their disdain. The Athenians weren't amused. Instead, they interpreted this as a scornful insult, deepening the chasm between Socratic thought and civic pride. Tensions filled the courtroom, swirling like a stormy sea above the heads of the gathering. Underneath the humour, Socrates served a stark reminder of what was at stake. The nourishment of wisdom was paramount, and negating it was akin to neglecting the very essence of society itself. Through this trial, he drove home the point that true knowledge was both brutal and beautiful, an enduring echo in the minds of those willing to listen and reflect. His conviction, determined by a jury still grappling with his polarising philosophy, seemed inevitable. Yet it wasn't a betrayal of ethos, but a reflection of justice, misplaced by fear. The verdict echoed through the halls, a testament to the city's inability to grasp the breadth of Socratic thought. For the philosopher, guilty was merely a word among men whose understanding was clouded by dogma. The court transformed from a hall of debate to a symbol of tragedy, with Socrates seen as a threat rather than a guiding sage. Wisdom, deemed enigmatic, was drowned beneath waves of ignorance, pressured to retreat into silence amidst the bronze faces reflecting a cultural unease. There was no chaos, only a shared realization, a breach in societal norms that left many questioning the very parameters of knowledge, destiny, and power. Beyond the courtroom, Socrates' conviction reverberated through a city that had lost its way, a once luminous beacon of enlightenment, now sagging under its philosophers' feet. Athens, with its tragic romance of past grandeur, found itself fragmented, exchanging whispers of fear wrapped in the language of forgotten ideals. The trial marked a departure from exploring new intellectual vistas, pitting past innovation against the insecurity of the present. Athenian society, once bold and grand, now looked back with wary eyes, shadows replacing its former brilliance. Socrates' defiance wasn't one of mere rebellion. His words drew scorn, but also undeniable intrigue. The jurors' responses were a tapestry of skepticism and wonder, reflecting the paradox of Athens itself. Buried in his rhetoric was a deep-seated challenge to societal ignorance, a pursuit for awareness amidst the absurd. As gavel met wood, the room resonated with more than judgment. It was a reflection on a man whose quest for knowledge struck a chord that rippled across time. Judgment was its own irony, a steadfast rejection turned profound affirmation in understanding's journey through time. The trial, while bridging reason with reprisal, crafted a narrative that thrived beyond its temporal confinements. Socrates transformed words into a legacy that would ensure philosophy's flame endured, echoing brightly across future ages, where wisdom and inquiry became inexhaustible beacons. The Athenian jury room, filled with 501 citizens, hums with anticipation as the men convene to decide Socrates' fate. These aren't just any verdicts they whisper among themselves. These are the decisions of a city grappling with the ghosts of its once golden empire. The air is thick with anxiety as each juror senses that the trial's outcome reflects more than mere legalities. It reveals the soul of a city searching for stability post-war. Here stands Socrates, the unyielding philosopher who embodies Athens' fraying conscience. Their murmurs reflect a deeper turmoil, a democracy at odds with itself, trying desperately to retain its once cherished ideals in the wake of lost glory and newfound uncertainty. As each vote is cast, it isn't only Socrates' integrity on the scales, but also the integrity of Athens itself. This is a moment where personal vendettas and the yearning for societal order clash violently. As the jury reaches its consensus, the tension magnifies, echoing through the chamber like the city's own internal strife, justice teetering at the edge of revenge. When the verdict is finally announced, it feels surreal, as if time itself pauses. Death by Hemlock, a sentence that is both stark and irreversible, highlighting a significant moment in the annals of philosophy and justice. To Socrates, this isn't only the conclusion of a life dedicated to discourse, but the society's fierce rebuttal of intellectual scrutiny. The decision is not solely about impiety or misconduct. It's about the city's rejection of its most introspective critic, a voice daring enough to dissect and redefine questions of truth and morality. This bitter outcome stems from a city still raw from its staggering losses, desperate for a scapegoat to ease its conscience. Instead of greeting Socratic questioning as a backbone for its future, Athens sees an agitator, an unsettling force in need of quelling. In its pursuit of comfort, Athens chooses silence over the penetrating inquiries that once sparked enlightenment within its sanctuary. The philosopher who once roamed its streets, interpreting the fabric of life, now stands condemned by the very court that should have admired his courage. His friends and followers, driven by affection and admiration, rally with urgency after the sentence. They present opportunities for escape, advocating that Socrates flee and seek refuge elsewhere. Here, we see the raw, touching loyalty intrinsic to the human spirit, a love motivated by a desire to preserve the extraordinary life of their mentor. Crito and others are determined, embodying the spirit of devotion that transcends cold legality. Socrates, however, remains immovable in his resolve. He acknowledges their pleas, yet holds firm to a painful truth. To escape would mean a betrayal of everything he stood for, a denouncement of the very principles he lived and philosophized. His commitment to the examined life stands unwavering even when it courts death. Fleeing would undercut not only his teachings, but also the laws of Athens, which he respects despite their shortcomings. His decision symbolizes a profound moral stance, where his ideas, his convictions, outweigh the instinct for self-preservation. Socrates' refusal is rooted in a deep acceptance of the philosophical ideals he cherished. It isn't an act of rebellion against his friends, nor is it a stubborn resistance to clemency. Instead, it's the embodiment of living a life governed by principles rather than yielding to fear. He stoically embraces the flawed justice of man, perceiving beyond his mortal end. It is a testament to integrity as non-negotiable, a trait that shifts the view from Socrates the thinker to Socrates the man, who harmonizes thought with action. Within the dim confines of his cell, Socratic dialogues take shape, uninterrupted by the march of time. In these last days, philosophical discussions endure, a blend of urgency with intimate calmness. This setting, a simple cell, becomes a final cradle for wisdom. No longer just a prison, it is transformed into a classroom where life's profound questions are laid bare. Surrounded by his closest followers, Socrates continues to teach with perhaps more fervour than before. Here, themes of virtue, the soul, and mortality echo the essence of a thinker, turning his last moments into timeless lessons. As the end approaches, Socrates meets the Hemlock with a calm demeanour, ushering tranquility into a moment steeped in dread. The poison, a concoction deceptively simple in appearance, symbolises the state's chilling power over life and death. Witnessing this ritual, those gathered feel the gravity of democratic reach, an enactment of law beyond debate. Yet Socrates' acceptance elevates this grim ceremony, turning it into a tableau etched permanently in history. Speaking through the numbing grip of Hemlock, Socrates imparts lasting wisdom. His final words invoke a transcendental cycle, requesting a sacrifice to Asclepius, as if marking death as a cure. It's both a metaphoric sigh in the face of life's turmoil and a philosophical bow to eternity. His departure surges with calmness, resounding through history as not an end, but a passage into philosophical immortality. Socrates' final chapter, unspooled beneath the pressure of scrutiny, becomes a saga of fidelity to inquiry and conviction, setting a legacy that moulds the conscientious thinker within us all. In the dim confines of his prison cell, Socrates converges a bleak setting and deep insight, achieving a remarkable transformation. The cold stone walls echo the whispers of philosophical debates, reminiscent of a vibrant, intellectual gathering. Despite the sombre atmosphere, there's a warmth in the exchange of ideas between Socrates and his visitors. This cell becomes a canvas for Athenian society's fears and hopes, a place where relentless inquiry continues to challenge each mind present. Young acolytes and seasoned thinkers alike sit with anticipation, embodying the city's diversity and its thirst for wisdom. Even the sympathetic guards appear captivated, absorbing the dialogues that weave ethics and existential thoughts into a rich tapestry that starkly contrasts with the cell's physical confines. The discussions often gravitate toward the nature of the soul, a theme that secures Socrates' philosophical legacy. He inspires his followers by discussing the soul as the essence of humanity, transcending physical life and death. Here, the soul's immortality frames an understanding of virtue, grounded in the divine order and one's pursuit of wisdom. Socrates challenges prevailing beliefs, suggesting death as a transition and not an end. This perspective on the soul's ongoing journey offers comfort and a profound way to reassess life. As conversations about the soul's freedom from earthly chains reflect a quest for transcendent truth, Socrates speaks eloquently about virtue, urging his listeners to align life with inner principles over external rewards. He champions virtue as the good life's cornerstone, advocating for its pursuit not for accolades but for its own sake. In a society entangled with ambition and material success, Socrates asserts that true virtue requires reflection and nurturing as vital as air. This notion challenges Athens' status quo, redefining success and implicitly criticizing societal norms that cloud pure virtue with political and economic ambition. His teachings sow philosophical seeds that future thinkers would cultivate into enduring ethical frameworks. Exploring the afterlife, Socrates delves into how the soul's actions on earth impact its journey beyond. He refrains from religious dogma, instead inviting introspection and reinforcing ethical conduct as crucial for the soul's judgment. This exploration portrays death as part of life's cycle, not to be feared but welcomed with philosophical reflection. His ideas offer solace to followers, shifting focus from fear of the unknown to moral inventory, contemplating not the end, but a new phase where character and virtue hold paramount importance. Irony and absurdity enrich Socratic dialogues, flavours that Socrates employs to dissect human behaviours and societal norms. Confronting irony with sharp wit, he exposes contradictions within human actions, offering a playful yet profound take on life's incongruities. Even as his execution looms, Socrates finds humour in the flaws and follies of mankind. This approach sparks reflection and engagement, challenging followers to embrace life's absurdities as integral to the human experience, while persistently seeking truth. In his cell, Socrates holds intimate conversations with close disciples like Plato and Crito, weaving friendships rooted in mutual respect and intellectual kinship. These moments become a philosophical inheritance for Plato, who would immortalize them in dialogues studied for generations. Socrates urges his followers to perpetuate the teachings, fueling an intellectual legacy destined to thrive well beyond the prison walls. Through these interactions, a new generation of torchbearers emerges, committed to carrying forward the philosophical inquiries pioneered by their mentor. Socrates emphasizes that philosophy is not merely theoretical, but a practical guide for ethical living. It cultivates a freedom arising from introspection, a means to navigate life with moral clarity. His calm acceptance of his fate demonstrates philosophy's role in achieving inner peace, reinforcing that life must be led in pursuit of truth and understanding. Philosophy, Socrates asserts, illuminates the path through chaos, offering stability even under the shadow of impending death. His insistence on philosophy as a life practice underscores its power to guide actions and thought, resonating with his followers as a means to find meaning amid life's uncertainties. Through his dialogues, Socrates critiques Athenian society, dissecting its values and justice system while cautioning against the perils of populism. His analysis challenges Athens to rise above mediocrity, condemning rhetoric over substance and wealth over wisdom. Socrates' critique serves as a conscience for Athens, urging reform and introspection, pushing for a society where education encompasses ethics alongside arts. His scrutiny of Athenian shortcomings offers a lesson that reverberates through history, highlighting the fragility of democracy if unchecked by ethical rigor. Facing death with unparalleled calm, Socrates embodies his teachings on the soul and virtue. His peaceful acceptance of fate exemplifies his creed that fear of death is irrational for one who has lived by principle. His dignity in the face of mortality serves as a beacon for his followers, reinforcing that life's pursuit of truth and virtue transcends earthly bounds. Socrates' composed resignation plants his teachings firmly in action, crafting a template for followers to navigate their own lives with courage, virtue, and acceptance of life's cyclical nature. These prison dialogues forge Socrates' enduring legacy as a beacon of rational thought. His last conversations resonate across ages, shaping philosophers grappling with ethics and the soul. Socrates' dialectical approach becomes a timeless quest for knowledge, immortalizing him as a martyr for philosophy. This legacy establishes him not just as Plato's mentor, but as a pillar of rational thought, inspiring inquiry and wisdom that pierce through ignorance, lighting the path for generations to come. As the sun cast its waning light through the narrow window of his cell, an aura of finality wrapped around Socrates and his devoted disciples. Plato, Crito, Apollodorus and others gathered, their hearts heavy with foreboding, as they realized that their beloved mentor was not being taken by age, but by the ominous grip of state judgment. Yet Socrates sat among them, the embodiment of serenity, as if preparing for a new realm of inquiry rather than the end of life. The room alive with the low murmur of their apprehensions was softened by the philosopher's light-hearted musings that sought to transform death into a curious transition rather than a dreadful conclusion. His disciples, caught in a swirl of admiration and fear, found solace in their teacher's calm demeanour, which unified them even as the looming presence of death approached. For Socrates, this was not an end, but a profound transformation, the soul outlasting its temporal vessel. His presence filled the grim chamber with a conviction that the truly examined life defied a bitter end, drawing his followers nearer to the wisdom he imparted. For him, death was part of the universal truth he had pursued, and his unwavering conviction offered them a fragile shield against the reality of loss. In a city alive with the bustle of markets and merchants, the world outside faded as their sanctuary embraced silence. When the jailer arrived, carrying the clay cup of Hemlock, the inevitability of Socrates' fate settled oppressively upon them. Yet he accepted the cup, showing neither fear nor hesitation, embodying the philosopher's courage in challenging both fear and societal norms. As Socrates raised the cup to his lips, it was an emblematic moment, a gesture of defiance against the confines of mortality. This act became a transcendent affirmation, a culmination of his lifelong quest for truth over ignorance. The Hemlock itself was a bitter concoction, not a cordial cup shared among friends, nor the sustaining waters of life, but a symbol of state power over life and death. Socrates did not flinch. Instead, he welcomed its effects with the curiosity of a researcher, noting the encroaching numbness as it crept through his limbs. His disciples watched in awe and despair as their mentor transformed a grim procedure into a final philosophical inquiry. Apollodorus's tears and raw emotion mirrored the inner turmoil of everyone present, yet Socrates comforted them with gentle words, a reminder that his essence transcended the physical limitations imposed upon him. As his legs surrendered to the venom, Socrates' gaze remained steady. He gently encouraged his companions to channel their grief into resilience. "I leave you not in death, but in the continuation of truth," he assured them, infusing the air with the assurance that their shared dialogues and discoveries would persist beyond his mortal veil. The disciples' tears interwove with the legacy they were now charged to protect, the unextinguished flame of Socratic wisdom. These stone walls could not contain the impact of his ideas. Outside, Athens continued to buzz, unaware of the profound transformation taking place within this humble cell. In a final conversation marked by gravity, Socrates made an unusual request. He asked Crito to offer a sacrifice to Asclepius, the god of healing. This cryptic plea hinted at gratitude not only for past healings of the spirit, but also as a nod to the liberation and clarity that death might bring. His disciples may have been puzzled, yet the irony of his last directive showed that Socrates saw the release of life's burdens as an ultimate healing. As he drifted closer to the horizon of death, Socrates remained in harmonious acceptance, his resolve clear and undisturbed. The distraught assembly stayed in a cocoon of past teachings, now layered with insights that would guide them beyond his physical presence. This moment distanced death from loss, emphasizing the perpetuation of his ideology, a crescendo where reason defined immortality, not through endless life but through shared knowledge and continued dialogue. For his followers, the moment of passing was a catalyst for transformation. From students to philosophers, they carried forth his torch. No longer mere followers, they embraced their roles as new leaders of Socratic thought. Each conversation and lesson imparted by Socrates transformed from transient interaction into a fortified foundation of intellectual heritage, tasked with lighting paths for generations to come. Socrates, facing the shadow of death, looked beyond stone confines to distant horizons, viewing an infinite expanse of thought, beautiful and profound. His farewell was not lament but a declaration. Ideas enrich the world through their abstract dimensions, tethered to eternal contemplation and exchange. His departure was a continuation, a vivid testimony that life finds its richest meanings through the endless reach of understanding. The physical world faded as his teachings resounded, a harmonic melody of inquiry, sustaining an endless journey in pursuit of knowledge. The gentle lowering of life's curtain signalled not an end, but the vibrant continuation of dialogue, where Socratic legacies eternally breathe invincible, forever prompting new minds to explore unbridled. In the wake of Socrates' death, Athens found itself a city of whispers and regrets. As the Hemlock claimed him, an eerie quiet settled over the bustling agora where Socrates had once roamed, unkempt and relentless in his quest for truth. The trial, fresh in memory, left many Athenians wrestling with a gnawing sense of collective guilt, as if the soul of the city had been dimmed. The absence of his probing inquiries was palpable, echoing in the agora, which seemed stiflingly muted without its famed gadfly buzzing amongst the crowd. Discussions about the trial, once whispered, grew louder, transforming into public debates about the fairness of the verdict. For some, Socrates' execution was not just the silencing of a man, but the extinguishing of a light that pierced the collective ignorance enveloping society. As mournful meetings dotted the city, Athens grappled with the sobering realization that fear and envy had triumphed over wisdom and courage. To many of Socrates' followers, the city's democracy now seemed flawed, a structure that had allowed fear to crush the truth. Driven by a need to atone and remember, Athens erected statues of Socrates scattered like solemn sentinels through its streets. These figures, more than mere marble, stood as guardians against forgetfulness, an eternal reminder of the dangers inherent in ignorance. Public art became an avenue for expressing collective grief and introspection, with playwrights and poets weaving Socrates' narrative into the cultural fabric. Through sculpture and stage, Athens sought redemption. These gestures meant to echo through time as both apology and homage, urging future generations to question and challenge. Amid this cultural reckoning emerged Socrates' disciples, carrying the torch of his philosophy into new eras. Chief among them was Plato, whose admiration for his teacher deeply imprinted his future work. Witnessing Socrates' end spurred Plato to dedicate his life to the preservation and expansion of Socratic teachings. He founded the Academy, a beacon of philosophical inquiry where ideas could be cultivated and disseminated. Here Socratic dialogue lived on, with Plato crafting dialogues that immortalized Socrates' method, transforming his mentor's questions into a cornerstone of Western thought. Other disciples joined this intellectual crusade, with figures like Xenophon offering their interpretations of Socratic wisdom. Together, they built a tapestry of thought that explored virtue, ethics, and knowledge, ensuring Socrates' probing questions continued to resonate far beyond the confines of Athens. The legacy they nurtured laid a foundation for the philosophical evolution that would span the ancient world and beyond. The impact of Socrates transcended remembrance, altering the very landscape of philosophical inquiry. What was once dismissed as rhetorical gymnastics now matured into a quest for truth through reasoned argumentation. The Socratic method, dialogue driven by incisive questioning, became central to education, encouraging critical thought and intellectual humility. This approach not only survived but thrived, becoming a staple of pedagogical practice in various fields, embodying the spirit of inquiry that Socrates championed. Plato's vision amplified this legacy. His dialogues, probing justice, virtue, and reality with a depth that would influence countless generations. The Academy symbolized philosophical rigor, its students steeped in the dialectical method that posed timeless questions. As philosophy evolved from an esoteric endeavour to an integral element of societal development. It informed debates on governance, ethics, and the nature of being. Philosophy rippled outward, evolving from Athens' margins to the centre of intellectual discourse, its influence growing as it rooted itself in educational systems worldwide. Socratic thought stretched beyond Greek borders, weaving into the fabric of global philosophy. Greek conquest and cultural exchanges carried his ideas far and wide, influencing Roman thinkers like Cicero and Seneca. In the Islamic Golden Age, translations of Socratic dialogues ensured his voice resonated across cultures, enriching varied philosophical and religious traditions. Eastern thought too found in Socratic principles a resonance, embracing the universality of his insights into wisdom and virtue. Today, in an era awash with information, yet starved for understanding, the Socratic method remains a beacon of clarity, advocating discernment over passive consumption. Amidst technological upheavals and social shifts, Socrates' insistence on examining foundational beliefs offers a critical lens through which to navigate modern existential challenges. Educational systems worldwide prize the Socratic method for its emphasis on dialogue, fostering a culture of inquiry that equips students to tackle complex issues with nuance and integrity. In the end, Socrates gifted posterity an enduring template for an unyielding quest for truth, a philosophical journey that champions the virtues of relentless questioning and self-examination. His legacy beckons each new generation to shed complacency, to grapple with the discomfort of doubt as a catalyst for enlightenment. Through his life and teachings, Socrates continues to urge humanity to seek a life marked by examined beliefs and informed actions. As his questions resonate through time, inviting scrutiny of the human condition, they shape the world's intellectual and moral landscape, echoing his eternal quest for wisdom and justice. As we conclude this tale, where history and philosophy intertwine, remember to nurture your curiosity and keep questioning. If you found this exploration insightful, please like and subscribe for more journeys through the ages.